everyone, thanks for learning to play games. My name is Lance, and in today's video I'm looking at a brand new game coming to Kickstarter called Sprocketforge. This is a new one from sophisticated Cerberus games. It is a 2 to 5 player game that takes roughly 1 to 2 hours to play and is a competitive game where players are going to be competing to gain renown. At the end of the game, whoever has the most will be the winner. So in the game itself, you are going to be playing gnomes, and each player has their own factory that is producing artifacts. And throughout the game, players are going to be picking up different order cards and other things that are going to gain those players renown throughout the game. At the end of the game, whoever has the most renown will be the winner of the game. So in this video, I'm going to show you the main features of the game and also show you a couple of sample turns to give you a better idea how this one plays and help you decide on whether or not this is one you want to back on Kickstarter. As always, if you find my videos helpful, if you like what I do, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to my channel. It's one of the easiest ways you can support channels like mine so we continue to grow, build, produce this content. If you want to get notified anytime I drop new videos, also give that notification bell a ring, and that'll alert you whenever I drop new stuff, as I'm constantly dropping new crowdfunding videos, playthroughs, unboxings, teaching videos, and many others. Before heading into the video, I do also want to point out that all the materials here are prototype materials and are subject to change, and will look a lot better in the final production copy of the game. I also have a link up in the top corner if you want to see a playthrough video where I play through the first, middle, and end few rounds to give you a better idea how this one plays. So let's go ahead and head to the table. We'll see what this one's all about. So before getting into the video, there are a couple of corrections that I need to make, as the designers have made some adjustments to the game after I did this filming and returned the game, so I wasn't able to implement them here, but I just wanted to make you aware of it as you are watching the videos to decide whether or not you want to back this game. So first off, there is a solo mode that is going to be added to the game as well now, so if for those of you that are interested in solo mode, that is going to be an option. And there's been some adjustments to the game itself. So in the videos, as you're going to watch, during a player's turn, that player has to perform an action from a selection of different actions. And in the videos you're going to watch, there are 4 different actions a player can take. 2 of those actions are the take order action and the cleanup action. Those actions the designers felt really weren't very powerful in their own right, so they decided to combine those actions into a single action to make it more powerful and desirable. As you're going to see in the video, I don't really take either one of those actions too often, as there's other actions that are more beneficial to me, and I can basically supplement some of the different things that I'm doing within my building of the engine building aspect to kind of compensate for those actions. So they really weren't very useful to me. And so the designers have kind of looked at that in other videos and decided it's just better to combine those actions to make them a more powerful and more optimal choice for the player. So other than that, there are a couple of corrections that I need to point out as well. As you're watching these videos, just keep these things in mind, as these were errors that I made. So first off, in the playthrough video especially, you're going to see this where when the active player goes, other players can do a follow-up action. Now that follow-up action is an optional action. The player is not forced to do that, which I was kind of thinking that the player had to in the video. So you're going to see me doing that with the other players having to rotate their dial or take some sort of optional action based on whatever the primary action was. So just keep in mind that is an optional action. The player does not have to perform anything as a follow-up action if they don't want to. The other big thing is with the favor cards. So when I discarded a favor card, it was placed face down. Those are actually going to be placed face up. Also, during setup, the designers have decided to remove each player receiving a favor card to start the game with. And the reason why is, and you're going to see that in the video, is that whoever is the first player and takes an action, if they take certain actions, it opens them up to other players playing that favor card to do an early petition and get some big victory points early in the game that can kind of give the other player or players some advantage at the early points in the game. So they have decided to remove that possibility and to give all the players an even playing ground and not kind of penalize that first player or first couple players for taking other actions and leaving themselves at a potential disadvantage. So just some stuff to keep in mind as you watch the video. So let's go ahead and head back in and we'll see how this goes. So the first thing I want to go over are the different resources you're going to be managing throughout the game. And there are 4 different ones that represent earth, air, fire, and water. Throughout the game, players are going to be trying to complete order cards to gain the benefits on those cards, and there are 3 different levels: commoner cards, merchant cards, and noble cards. Starting with the commoner cards, each one of these in this deck are exactly the same. By spending a wild resource or a resource of your choice, you'll complete this card, gaining an enchantment tile and no renown points. Next, you're going to have the merchant cards, and with the merchant cards, you'll spend the resources that are listed there to complete the card and gain the renown points that are listed and any other benefit on the card, which, for example, with this one, I would gain a favor card, and with this one, I would take an upgrade token. Next, you have the noble cards, and these are the cards that are worth the most renown points, but are also going to require the most resources in the game. With these cards, when you complete them, you're also going to gain any benefits on them, just like the merchant cards. And these can range anywhere from, with this one here, I would gain an enchantment tile or an upgrade tile of my choice. And these 2 grant me a favor card again, where there's other ones that will grant you all kinds of different things. And then the final 2 sets of cards that I want to cover are the house cards and the favor cards. So starting with the house cards, you can petition a house to gain renown points. In order to do that, you must meet the requirements on the bottom of the card for the vented mana in your area on your board, and I'll cover that in a little bit. Each one of them is going to require different amounts. For example, with this one, to get 5 renown points, you must have the least vented mana of any player on the board. Moving over, this one is 0 to 4. So if you have anywhere from 0 to 4 vented mana in your supply, you're okay, and you can complete this. This one 0 to 8, and then any. And as you can see, you get less and less points based on the vented mana you have. When you complete that, then you'll also get the benefits on the card on top of the renown. And then finally, we have the favor cards, and these are the cards you must spend in order to petition a house. And these are going to be worth renown points at the end of the game, ranging from 1 all the way to 3. And these are also going to be kept hidden from other players, so at the end of the game, you might have a whole stack of these that you're going to gain those renown points for at the end of the game, where players will not be able to determine where you are within the overall renown points with these cards. Next, I want to go over the player boards. So each player is going to have their own board that is going to have 5 sprockets placed in it. Each player is also going to have an area that is their exhaust. So as players spend their mana, it is going to go into the exhaust area from top to bottom and from left to right. So as I spend additional resources, those are going to go into the exhaust. And if you ever fill up the exhaust and you have to place additional mana in there, you're going to start losing renown points for that. Now, there are going to be ways of clearing mana from here. And when you do, you'll get to choose which ones you want to remove. And then the rest, again, are going to slide over and fill those spots from top to bottom and left to right. Now, throughout the game, players are going to gain enchantment tiles that they're going to be placing into the different sprockets. And they're also going to potentially gain upgrade tiles, again, that will also be placed in those sprockets. Now, depending upon the actions that players take and the actions or the follow-up actions that players take on other players' turns, you're going to get to rotate these tiles. And then during your turn, if you take a produce action, you'll gain resources that are listed on these different areas in the active areas, which is always going to be the bottom area on each one of the sprockets. And there's going to be other symbols as well. So some of these symbols will grant you resources such as fire, water, earth, and air. And then others will have other effects, such as the little arrows here will allow you to transmute mana from another player's exhaust area, gaining that mana. So that will actually be one of the ways that players will get rid of mana, is by having mana in there that other players are going to transmute. And there's going to be other symbols as well. And then the upgrades will have active areas. So for example, with this one, if it was turned like this, one of its active areas is active. So this lets you trash a mana from your mana pool or your exhaust, again, shifting all the rest over of your choice. And then the mana that is in your pool, you'll be able to spend to complete order cards throughout your turn. And I'll show you all this in the next step. And the last thing I want to do is explain how the player turn works and the different actions you can take on your turn, as well as a couple of sample turns to give you a better idea how this one plays. So before getting into it, I do want to go through the 4 different types of actions a player can perform on that player's turn. The game itself is going to be played over rounds, and during each round, each player is going to get to take a turn. And this is going to continue going until one of the players meets the endgame condition, which is reaching 30 renown points. At that point, then all the rest of the players will get to take their final turn. And then you'll go through one more produce step where none of the other players are going to get to do a follow-up action. And then the player that has the most renown points will be the winner. So getting into it, during a player's turn, there are 4 different possible main actions a player can take, and the player is going to choose one of those actions during his or her turn to carry out. Then there is also some free actions a player can take, and then there is a final step, a finishing part of that player's turn. So first off, there is the produce action. This action allows you to resolve each one of the active sprockets that you have and any effects that it has on it. So for example, with player 1, if I chose to do the produce action, I would gain a fire mana and a water mana from the supply, and I would add those to my mana pool. And then if I had any other sprockets with the active section, I would gain those benefits as well. But initially at the beginning of the game, you're only going to start with 2. And then again, if you had a upgrade in there and it was on its active side, which again is just going to be the sides that show the image, then I would also benefit from those. From there, then all other players will get to take a follow-up action. So all players are always going to be participating throughout the game. So the follow-up action for produce is to gain a mana of that player's choice. So let's go ahead and say that this player wanted a earth mana. So that would go into that player's mana pool. Alternatively, as the follow-up action, you can always choose to just rotate your sprockets. By rotating one of them clockwise, you rotate all the rest, and you're going to rotate it 1 turn so that the next area is visible. So from there, the next type of action is to take orders. This action allows you to select 3 orders from the different areas, which could be either commoner, merchant, and noble. And I could take all 3 from noble or a mix of them as long as I have space for them. Now, if you say, for example, I had 3 already and I gained 3 additional ones. So let's go ahead and just say, for example, that I take these, and each time you take one, you're actually going to fill up a slot as well. But this is just for this example. So let's go ahead and say that I had this. At the end of my turn, I'm going to choose one of these to get rid of so that I have my maximum of 5 that I'm allowed. All right. So with that, once that player has resolved that, then the other players are also going to do a follow-up where they can, again, either draw a random merchant order card, so you would just take the top card of the merchant deck and add it to your area, or again, you can rotate your sprockets 1 turn. And the active player, when taking orders, can also do a blind draw off of the top of the decks as well, if that player chooses, if he doesn't like any of the ones that are there. So that is to take orders. Next is to clean up. This allows you to remove 3 vented mana from your exhaust. So I can choose any 3 to remove. So let's say I remove those 3. From there, then all the rest are going to slide over, filling the top from top to bottom and left to right. And these will simply be returned to the supply. As a follow-up action, each other player can remove 1 vented mana and or rotate their gears. Then we have Petition. This one has you discarding a favor card of your choice back to the bottom of the supply or to a discard pile if you want. And then you can petition a house as long as you meet the requirements of that house by having the required amount of vented mana in your area. So again, for example, with these, the 2 orange ones are 0 to 8. So I would meet the requirements for either one of those. And then for the green one, I also meet the requirements for that as it is 0 to 4 vented mana. Now, once a player, so let's go ahead and say that I do that. I would discard that favor, and let's go ahead and say I complete this one. I would gain 4 renown, so I move my renown up to 4, and then I get to draw 2 favors. I get to keep one and discard the other. As a follow-up action, each other player can also choose to discard a favor token to petition the same house. Now, you have to meet the vented requirements for that, and with that, you're only going to gain the renown. You will not gain the benefit of the house as well. So those are the 4 different types of actions a player can perform, and you will only choose one of those during your turn to carry out. From there, then you also have a couple of different free actions. The first one is once per turn, you may refresh any market row. So you can choose a market and get rid of all of the cards in that particular thing. So for example, with Noble, I could clear all of these and reveal 3 new ones. And you can do this with any of the market areas. And then also, once per turn, I may disenchant a gear to gain its stored mana and resolve its active production symbols. So with that, I would clear this if I had stored mana. So as the game goes on, players are going to have stored mana. So mana that I cannot spend that's in my pool, I have to place on my different enchantments into the empty spots. So for example, with this one, if I cleared this one, I would gain these into my mana pool. I would get whatever the active thing is in my area, and then this one would be removed and placed on the bottom of the stack. So you don't want to do that all the time, as you really do want to keep those in there. But if you want to replace one with a new one or whatnot, or you really need to complete things, that is an option for you as well. And these free actions can be done before or after your main action. You just cannot do them in the middle of your main action. And then after you've completed your main action, you're allowed to vent any mana that you have in your pool to complete orders and get the benefits of those orders. And then the final thing, at the end of your turn, any mana that you have remaining in your mana pool is going to be placed on sprockets that have open areas, and then you're going to rotate your sprockets 1 active area. And then it'll pass to the next player in clockwise order. All right, and the final thing I want to do is take you through a couple of sample turns to put all this together and show you how it all works. So starting with the first player, that player is going to go ahead and take his turn. And so again, at the beginning of that player's turn, you can carry out free actions if you want to, and then you're going to select your main action. And again, these free actions can be done either before or after your main action. They just can't be done in the middle of your action. So from there, that player is going to go ahead and choose to do a produce action. So this one allows me to resolve the active areas on each one of my sprockets. So now I only have the 2 areas that have an enchantment in them. So I'm going to gain a fire mana and a water mana, and those are going to go into my mana pool. From there, each other player during this process will get to do the follow-up action. So this player over here can choose to gain a mana of that player's choice, or to rotate their sprockets 1 turn. So that player is going to go ahead and just go ahead and take a brown mana and add it to that player's pool as well. All right, so then moving back over to my active player here, now that I've completed my main action, is there any other actions that I want to perform as far as free actions? I do not want to refresh anything, I think, at this point, and I do not want to disenchant any of my gears. So from there, then I can also carry out my secondary my second part of my turn, which is to vent any mana that I have in my mana pool to complete orders. So I don't have the requirements for this order yet, as I need a water and an air, which I don't have the air, but I do have a wild, which I can choose any resource that I have to carry this one out. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I will spend the fire, and that'll go into my exhausted area. Again, top to bottom, left to right, and that'll complete this action. So this can just be returned to the top of the stack, and I will choose one of the enchantment tiles. So I'm going to go ahead and take this one here, and I'll slot that into my area. And this can be slid over, and then I will also reveal a new tile to be placed down. All right, so that is the only thing I can do as far as I cannot complete any other orders. So I do have 1 mana left. So at the end of my turn, this is going to be placed into one of the open areas on one of my enchantments. So I'm going to go ahead and drop it onto that one there. And then the final step is to rotate 1 turn on the wheels. And the outer wheels will be rotated clockwise. The inner wheel will be rotated counterclockwise. But as you can see, turning 1 will turn all of them. All right, that is the end of my turn, as there's nothing else to do at this point. So it's going to pass over to the next player in clockwise order to go. So with player 2 here, I am going to go ahead and choose a different action as I see an opportunity here to get some early points, some early renown points. So I'm going to go ahead and do a petition action. That allows me to spend a favorite card and discard it to petition one of the houses. And I'm going to go ahead and choose the house Fleet Whisper. So with this one, I have to meet the requirements. So this one's requirements are 0 to 4 vented mana, which I have 4. So I'm just barely there, but I do have what is required. So I'm going to go ahead and petition that house. So with that one, I'm going to gain 4 renown points. And I get to draw 2 favorite cards. These are normally kept hidden, but I'm going to go ahead and reveal them. And you're going to choose one of them, discarding the other. So obviously I want to hold on to that 2.1. And then this is going to be discarded. And then the other player gets to do a follow-up action. Now with a petition, the other player can petition that same house, again, as long as they meet the requirements. And that is why this player played this one, as this player has 5 vented mana in its exhaust area. So it has too much and will not be able to petition this house. So the only option that player has is to rotate their sprockets 1 space. All right, then this is going to simply be discarded. So I'll discard that, and then a new one is revealed. All right, and then going into this player's turn still, I've carried out my main action. Again, I don't really want to do either one of the secondary actions. Well, you know what? I will carry out this one. So this lets me choose a area or a spot in the market and refresh it. So I'm going to go ahead and refresh the wheels down here, or enchantments, and reveal 3 new ones. Okay. All right. And from there, then I am going to I can also spend mana in my pool to carry out cards. So I'm going to go ahead and do this card as well, spending the brown mana that I have, or earth, and then carrying that out. So I'm going to get to choose an enchantment. So I can take one of those that revealed, or I can do a blind draw off the top. But I think I'm going to go ahead and take, well, yeah, I'm going to take this one. So I'm going to go ahead and slot that one in there. And this gets, a new one gets revealed. And then the final part of my turn is to rotate 1 click. All right, that is everything I can do. So at this point, at the end of the round, you're going to check to see if the end game condition is met. Nobody has gotten 30 renown points yet. So it will start a new round, starting with the first player and proceeding again clockwise with all players taking a turn. Well, I hope you found this video helpful in determining whether or not this is one you want to back on Kickstarter. As always, if you have any questions or comments, please post those in the comment section below and I'll do my best to answer them. Or swing by the Kickstarter page and drop any questions you have in the comment section as well. I'm sure the creators would love to hear from you and are more than happy to answer any questions you have. Until next time, I'll see you later.